أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم ويأبى الله إلا أن يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون صدق الله العظيم. Just as the Quran Kareem explains hidayah and guidance and what to do, what is righteousness, the right things, the path of the Anbiya, like that, the Quran Kareem also explains to us what is misguidance. What's the nature of batil and falsehood? It helps in understanding truth when you know what the opposite is. If you don't know what darkness is, then you can't appreciate what light is. In Arabic there's a saying, وَبِضِدِّهَا تَتَبَيَّنُ الْأَشْيَاءُ, that things are recognized by their opposites. So just as how to be guided and what to do in order for one to be guided and the paths towards that, so on and so forth, like that, the nature of falsehood, what does batil want, how does it operate, etc., etc. That's also discussed and explained in the Quran Kareem, explicitly and sometimes implicitly. In verse 32 of Surah At-Tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains one nature of batil and falsehood, that those that are upon falsehood, they're not satisfied with just doing what they want to do. They do their own things of misguidance and they will settle for that. They sin and they do wrong and they settle for that. No. They want to spread their misguidance as well. Just as Muslimun and Mu'minun and those that have hidayah want to call towards hidayah and guidance, like that, those that are misguided, those that are upon whatever they think is correct, they also want to spread those ideologies. They also want to spread those thoughts and ideas. So this, a person must be aware of. يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explains the nature of their efforts, that the example is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran Kareem draws this example, that imagine a fire which is lit in order to illuminate what's around it. Previously, when they don't have electricity, they use fire. They use fire as a means of illumination, of having light. So it's a large fire, it's a big fire, and someone wants to just blow at it with their mouth. Meaning nothing's going to happen. In reality, nothing will happen. That fire, that nur, that light will not disappear because of someone blowing at it. It's a large fire. It's not just a small candle wick. So the Quran Kareem says, يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ بِأَفْوَاهِهِم, that they, Ahlul Batil, desire to extinguish the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the nur of Allah. How large? That's why I said a large fire. Because Allahu nuru samawati wal ard. The nur of Allah encompasses everything. The nur of Allah is limitless, because from the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their efforts are limited, obviously. So something limited cannot overpower something which is limitless. So يُرِيدُونَ أَن يُطْفِئُوا نُورَ اللَّهِ. But you have to be aware that this is their attempt. بِأَفْوَاهِهِم, with their mouths. What does this refer to? That the deen al-haq, the truth, or the nubuwwah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or the Quran Kareem, or haqq as we know it, through their false propaganda, through their false media, through their false sayings, all of those things will be used against haqq. All of that will be used against the truth. وَيَأْبَى اللَّهُ إِلَّا أَن يُتِمَّ نُورَهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not allow for this to happen, and the nur of Allah will remain and will be completed. The hidayah will, as it comes the hadith that every home will receive, the Islam will enter into every baked and unbaked home. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْكَافِرُونَ, even if those who are disbelievers and those that reject, even if they do not like this, even if they hate it, either way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree will be there. When and how, that is up to the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that this will occur, how and who will be accepted for these efforts, that is also in the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What the individual must do is that he must be aware of the plots of batil and falsehood, and ensure that he himself works towards becoming someone who is accepted in this effort of itmamu nurillah, completing the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that of haqq. So because the nature of batil was there, what is the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world? That hidayah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends through the Anbiya alayhim salatu wasalam and those that attach themselves to the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So هو الذي أرسل رسوله. The Quran Kareem has both sides always. There is a positive, there is a negative side. هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى. Allah is the one who sent his Rasul, his messenger, with guidance. وَدِينِ الْحَقِّ, we spoke of Deen al-Haqq the other day. لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, so that it may dominate over all religions. Izhar, zuhur means ghalaba, that there is dominance and it prevails over it. Now when most people hear dominance, what comes to their mind? They always think about only political dominance, right? Martial dominance. That's the only dominance that comes to most people's mind. Even that Allah subhanahu for almost 1,000 years, there was some form of dominance of Islam in the world as well. That's also not denied. And end of times, as we know, after Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, that will also be completed. So not to ignore that dominance has not or will never occur, that's also there. The martial dominance and political will also be there, was there and will come again. But which dominance was always there, is there and will always be there? That is the dominance of the haqq, of the truth. An ideological dominance, if you want to call it an academic dominance. That as far as the proof of Islam, the truth of Islam through its proofs, that was established from the time Nabi ﷺ came, that it caused ripples immediately, not just ripples, tides immediately in Arabia. And till today, everyone knows that Islam, a person cannot just wipe away like that. Modernity has taken over Christianity, secularism has taken over Christianity, Judaism, all of these other religions and whatnot. Islam is the one that remains firm. That doesn't mean to say that no Muslim ever goes towards anything, that we're not saying that. But in its essence, the proof of Islam always remains upon her. Why? Because it's the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has taken the protection of the Quran Kareem and of the Deen al-Haqq. And through the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that there will always be a ta'ifa al-haqq, as the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informs us, that there will always be Ahlul Haqq that will be there to uphold what is truth. وَلَوْ كَرِهَ الْمُشْرِكُونَ, again, even if others hate it, dislike it, this doesn't change anything. There's a great consolence over here consolement for the Muslims as well, that everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Omnipotence only belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that is omnipotent, nothing else. So in our rhetoric as well, in our dialogue, we shouldn't exceed the bounds. Sometimes the way some people speak as if they're making others, give others omnipotence, that they have dominance and they are the ones that call the shots, etc., etc. No, it's within the qudra and qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if He allows for some things to occur as an ibtila, as a test of istiqamah, of who remains steadfast, that are you only looking at, do you move with the tide? That wherever there is political dominance, and that's where you want to go. Whichever culture becomes more dominant, that's the side that you start leaning towards. Or are you upon haqq, that you desire the haqq for the sake of haqq? So this is also an ibtila, it's also a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why it comes in the Quran al-Kareem that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, He would have made, He would have given the riches of the world to the people, to Ahl al-Iman. But He doesn't want that. It's not supposed. This is not the place for receiving your jaza and your recompense. But rather, this is a place to see لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Part of ibtila and test is that how do you work when you don't have political dominance? How do you work when you don't have martial dominance? When those people around you are against you, it may seem that you are militarily dominated now. So what does that mean? That you stopped iman? That you stop working towards what is haqq? No. So that haqq is recognized not by political means of dominance. This is the take-home message today. We make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us understanding of the Quran.